And now we're going to look just a little bit of the beginning of the book. The very first section is before we begin. Let me see if I can go back. Yeah. And I love this quote from Kaba Akbar. And of the beginning, who spoke the tale? You did, you did. Like I feel like I could free write for 30 minutes about that. So if you're watching this video, you can pause now
Mhm.
and free write in response to that quote if you like. So the sections of the book, if you haven't started reading yet, are before we begin, begin, belong, become, behold, bestow, and begin again. And each section has an epigraph and then one of these sort of lyrical meditations on that section's theme. And I won't read this because it's a lot and I want us to have a little bit more conversation. But one of my beginnings is Toni Morrison, just as a writer and soulful writer, a writer who helps me connect with myself and God and others in the world. I look to her as a sort of spiritual guide. She's not the only writer I look to for that, but she's one of the main ones. And when I was doing research about her and how she started writing, I was fascinated to learn that the reason she started writing, the real reason, was that she had gone to this writers group in, I don't remember the year, but she had brought an essay that she had written as an undergraduate and they were fine, like the people in the group were fine and they were kind to her, but they pretty much told her she needed to write more and like bring something new, not something she had written in college. And what she loved most about the writers group was the food. It wasn't that she had an idea for a book, although she did have an idea for a book, and she eventually started working on that book. But the main driver was getting back to that writers group with the delicious food that she had had. And my guess is also the sense of community and feeling less alone as a writer. So it was going to that writers group, wanting to return, that made her finally start writing The Bluest Eye, which she had an idea for, but that's what made her sit down and do it. Another place I begin in this book is with this, what I call the intersection of the spiritual life and the creative life, and the rhythms of belonging, becoming, beholding, and bestowing. And so I take some time to explain that here in this before we begin section because it does repeat throughout the book, along with ideas like all of life is the writing life. And well, and it's the sections of the book, obviously, but I tie them all together and view each of these verbs as doorways into the creative life and the spiritual life. And that's one thing that I'm hoping this book will do for readers is to help people see that one reason all of life is the writing life is because we are always belonging, becoming, beholding, or bestowing, and beginning or beginning again. And maybe we're doing those things all at once. Maybe we're doing them one at a time. But if we think we've removed ourselves from the creative process somehow, I encourage you, if you ever have that thought, to stop and be like, well, based on today and how I used my time today and how, like, my experiences, whether I wrote or not, how was I belonging, becoming, beholding, and bestowing? So it's a more specific way to think about how all of life is the writing life and the creative process and the spiritual life and how those things intersect and just sort of a framework. Now, this isn't the only way to think of those things, right? This is just the language I'm using to get us through this book and to wrap words around what I think is happening when I meet with clients one-on-one or in group spiritual direction, or even for a retreat or something like that. So that's one reason I started with these words, was to just establish why they're important and what kind of work they're doing for the reader throughout the whole book.